skipped the cruise with my family last minute because they bought everyone else a ticket, and now they can't reach me. My parents wanted to do a cruise for the holidays. They invited me, 25F, my boyfriend, 27M, my brother, 28M, and his girlfriend, 26F. My brother, let's call him James, has always been the golden child. Some backstory: back in high school, when James was discovered to be selling pills, he was just going through a phase. Meanwhile, when I got caught smoking weed, my parents threatened to kick me out. James lost his scholarship and dropped out of college 3 different times, but he's still perfect. I graduated a semester late and I didn't try hard enough. James still lives in the state where he attending college, and I live in my home state near my parents. He doesn't work, he's not currently in school. My parents buy him flights all the time to come visit, but don't buy me a flight to go see him or go anywhere else. My parents send him money for rent and life necessities. He bought a $2,000 dog recently with that money. When I got my first big job at age 22, my parents immediately kicked me off their insurance since I had the option of benefits. James was on their insurance until he turned 26. Last year, I got laid off and moved back in with my parents to save money. When I got my new job, my parents told me I needed to pay $10,000 in back rent, which was never discussed previously. I did finish paying it off and recently moved in with my boyfriend. This has been a pattern my whole life. James gets everything handed to him and I have to work my ass off. So, now to the cruise. My parents said they wanted to do this, and bought tickets for themselves, James, and his girlfriend. They told me to get my own ticket since I have a well-paying job. I was super upset, and told them it wasn't fair that I was the only one who had to buy their own ticket. My boyfriend couldn't come due to holiday plans with his own family. My parents said I was actin' spoiled and that green wasn't a good look on me. I am so tired of hearing that phrase at this point. They said it's not like I had to get a nice room since we'd be outside it the majority of the time anyway, which is true, but then why get James a nice room? I decided I had enough and I wasn't going. But here's where I may be the asshole. I let them continue thinking I was for months. Then, on the night before they left, they said to get to their house by 8 a.m. so we could start the drive to the port. At 8:30 that day, they start messaging me asking where I am. I texted them, since you didn't want to put the effort in to have me join you, I will be attending my boyfriend's Thanksgiving instead. Have a nice trip with your favorite child. Then I muted the chat. I talked to some friends about this, and some said it was petty of me to cancel with no warning, and others said I should have sucked it up and gone since I would have had fun when I got there. They've been on the cruise for a couple days now, and I'm starting to regret how I handled things. Yeah, I probably would have had fun, and it's not like I couldn't afford the ticket. I also could have handled the delivery better. But at the same time, I'm so sick of them treating me like this. So, Ida for canceling on our family vacation? Update 1. Obviously, I'll start with the $10K in back rent. To me, the number itself wasn't the issue. I mean, yeah, it is definitely a bit higher than I would have liked, but not completely unreasonable. For the amount of time I lived there, it's not like I would have been able to rent my own place at a cheaper price, and if I hadn't moved in with them I would have completely depleted my savings and probably gone into debt. While I was laid off and looking for a new job in my field, I had a serving job and did some freelance writing work as well, so I was contributing to groceries but not paying rent or utilities. Because of that, I understood why my parents wanted help once I was in a positio, and to do so. I just wish they had defined that expectation from the beginning instead of springing it on me as a surprise. I paid it because I know it was an inconvenience for my parents to have me stay so long, especially during some home renovations, and it didn't feel worth the pushback if I refused. I know it would have turned into a whole big issue and it just felt easier to pay the money. Yes, I probably have some pushover tendencies that I need to address. Luckily, I'm in a well-paying field, I'm a technical writer, so once I got my new position, I was able to pay my parents back in about 6 months while also saving up to move out. The timeline for anyone curious is, I was laid off in January of last year. I used my savings to pay rent until my lease was up in June, and then I moved in with my parents. I lived with my parents from June of last year till September of this year, when I moved in with my boyfriend. I got my current job in May, which is when my parents told me that they wanted back rent and rent moving forward until I moved out. They said it was to help motivate me to get back on my feet. So not all of it was back rent technically, but I just used that term to try and be more concise. By the time I moved out, the total amount I owed had added up to the $10K, and I had already paid off most of it. I also saw a couple comments about pursuing legal action against my parents, but I don't think that's worth it or even possible. We never had a written contract and I didn't argue against paying it. I didn't want them to be able to hold that over me. Going through any legal issue would just dredge the whole thing up again and I'd rather not do that. It's paid now, so at least it's over with. In the future, I know I should probably be less willing to give in to their demands. It's just difficult when things have been this way my whole life and my experiences have shown me that any refusal paints me as ungrateful in their eyes. I try so hard to be perfect back, as I just want them to treat me with the same care and support as they do with James. The worst part is, James and I were super close growing up. When we were kids, we hung out all the time. He was the one who taught me how to ride a bike. He stood up for me when I was getting bullied. I don't think he's a bad person at all, He just never learned to stand on his own 2 feet. Our relationship is strained now because he doesn't get why I have issues with our parents. I miss the brother I would stay up playing RuneScape with. I'm pretty sure he fully buys into the idea that he needs extra help since he's always gotten it. He doesn't know how to do or expect anything else. At least he's still nice to me, but he just refuses to see the differences in how we're treated, and he basically wants me to just suck it up and be part of the family. Sadly, all his support just disappeared once it came to issues with our parents. I hope James gets some distance from them one day and we can reconnect. I don't want our relationship to keep suffering because of this. Sorry to get sappy for a second. But back to the comments, another thing I saw some people ask is why I didn't tell them sooner that I was canceling. I know that was a petty move on my part, but had I told them earlier, they would have spent those months trying to convince me to go and insulting me if I continued to refuse. It seemed like such a hassle, and the way I did it was much easier. And yeah, maybe this is shitty of me, but I did get some satisfaction out of it. It felt good to treat them at the same level they treat me. Besides, it's not like it actually affected their trip. They still went, just without me. Many of the comments brought up the idea of going low contact or no contact with my family, and it is something I've now been considering. My boyfriend is supportive of this decision since he has seen firsthand how my parents are. I'm sure my friends will be supportive as well if I explain the full story. Most of them have never met my parents, and I've tried not to get into the whole family dynamic with my friends since it's depressing for me to talk about, and I also didn't want to come off as just whining all the time. Prior to this, they've only heard some small complaints here and there. With all that out of the way, here's what happened since my last post. My boyfriend and I got to the cabin late Wednesday night. I gave his mother a bouquet of her favorite flowers and she loved them. We had a quick glass of wine while talking with his family before heading to bed. I was still a bit uncertain of my decision, so I probably wasn't as peppy as usual, but they didn't seem to mind. That night I made a promise to myself that I would put my own family issues aside during the trip and just focus on having a good time with my boyfriend's family, who have always been so gracious to me. On Thursday, we woke up early and helped his mom with some preparation for the food and set the table. After, we played some cornhole with his cousins and sadly lost due to my complete lack of athletic ability. The Thanksgiving meal itself was delicious, and his mom is such a good cook. Everyone was very sweet to me and made me feel so welcome as part of the family, which helped me feel much better about my decision to spend the holidays with them. Towards the end of the night, his mom even said to me that she knows it is ultimately up to my boyfriend, but she hopes I can join the family for real someday. I told her I would be honored if that happens, and we hugged. I really do hope it will. I love my boyfriend so much, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. His family is also an incredible bonus. I had such a wonderful time on Thanksgiving and enjoyed the rest of the weekend as well. We went on some great hikes, hung around by the bonfire, played board games, and watched movies. My boyfriend also spent some time looking after his little nephew and watching them play with Legos together. Definitely gave me some slight baby fever, though that is not something I want to act on for at least a couple years. We got back yesterday afternoon and I am already missing everything. It was genuinely a blast and there was no family drama, which made my family seem like even more of a mess. I feel like I'm rambling a bit now. Honestly, I probably have been the whole time, but I'm just so excited to share what a good time I had during the holiday and that I definitely made the right decision. Unfortunately, this update isn't entirely positive. I wish it could be. My parents reached out last night and they still weren't happy about my choice. I guess the sea air and unlimited drinks didn't do enough to relax them. My dad sent a passive-aggressive text of cruise pictures with a message that said, "Sad that you chose not to be with your family in such beautiful places." And I sent back a picture from my trip with my boyfriend's family and said, "Looks like you guys had a good time, so did we." Then my mom called and said she hoped I regretted missing out on a great family vacation and spoiling their memory due to a petty grudge against my brother. I told her my issue wasn't with James but rather their unfair preferential treatment between the two of us. My mom said that I was the one being unfair by comparing our situations since James needs help while he figures out his direction in life and I've always been much more independent. I told her the only reason that's true is because they never truly allowed me to depend on them. She said she wasn't going to apologize for raising a self-sufficient daughter, and that I should either grow up and be grateful for everything they've done or leave them alone for good and break their hearts all at once instead of doing it piece by piece. She called me cruel for dangling the hope of a wonderful holiday only to snatch it away at the last second. Even though they seem to be just fine without me, they're based on the photos my dad sent and what they posted on social media. I was really upset by this point and pointed out multiple examples of how they prioritize James, just hoping I could finally make her understand how growing up like this has affected me. My mom said I had a lot of nerve to put their parenting under a microscope when I have no children myself and have never had to make tough decisions. I had enough of the conversation and said, "I guess I'll just leave you guys alone like you want since I'll never be enough for this family anyway." I hung up and started crying, but my boyfriend was really supportive as always and we spent the rest of the night eating ice cream and watching The Hunger Games to cheer me up. I absolutely love the series and am so excited for Haymitch's movie to come out. It was weird to go back to work today after everything and act like nothing was the matter, but I think it was also a good distraction. Since I chose my boyfriend's holiday plans instead of my family's, I actually came back feeling mostly refreshed, besides the events of last night, instead of drained like I most likely would have been after the cruise. I haven't heard anything more from my parents yet, but I have a feeling they're just bluffing. I'm sure once they need something they'll reach out, or they'll probably try and smooth things over by Christmas so they don't have to explain the situation to our extended family. I haven't decided yet if I'll be open to reconciling. On one hand, I know I deserve better than to be treated as a burden and an afterthought while doing so much for them. I'm tired of trying to live up to their expectations, and I'm not optimistic about their behavior ever changing. But on the other hand, they are my family and it's just so difficult to fully walk away. I just want to feel the love and acceptance from my own family that I get from my boyfriend's family. Why is it so hard for them to treat me like I matter? I'm also worried that if I don't make nice with him, they'll twist the story to make me seem like the problem and my extended family will be mad at me too. There are people I like within my family, but my parents have a lot of influence over everyone's opinions. I don't know if it's worth putting up with them to at least keep some ties to my family, or if it would be better to accept the loss and move on from a dynamic where I am clearly not appreciated. I want to keep my brother at least, but maybe I'm just holding on to the past and that version of James doesn't exist anymore. I hope that's not true. I just don't know how to get through to him since he is so brainwashed by my parents and thinks they can do no wrong. I'm not sure if I'll ever truly get my brother back. I've got some big things to think about now, and I don't know if I'm ready to make sure a major change to my life. I do believe I'd feel much freer and lighter if I at least distance myself from them, and maybe even cut contact entirely. Now on to second story. Best friend abandoned my trust to date my crazy ex, called my parents to guilt trip me into forgiving, so I blocked her. I've been pretty much a loner with one exception, my best friend Tammy. We met in middle school and just became joined at the hip. Things changed a bit in college. My parents forced me into a Christian out-of-state college. Tammy applied and got accepted to the other college in the town, so we both went out there and were roommates for 2 of the years before I met my first ever boyfriend. I will call him Trent. I moved in with him the end of junior year, and I don't know when it started happening, but he went from charming and affectionate to controlling. I don't wish to upset anyone, so I will hit the pause button and warn you that below is some of the things he did for me to label him abusive. He would put me down and hint he could find someone better, or that if he cheats, it will be my fault since I wasn't this or that enough. It started to get physical senior year. At first it was him pushing me out of the way if he was walking by and I was in the path for whatever reason. Then he would slap me in arguments calling me worthless, a waste of his time and young years, a broken toy no one will love. I didn't have any real self-esteem, so I stayed, thinking I was the problem, and when I called home about it, I was told that the problem was me. I started to make my exit plan the day after I graduated. He had proposed, and I hesitated, and he screamed at me to ask why, then her swung and punched the wall right next to my head. I fell to the floor in fear, and he tried to comfort me and basically forced me into sex. When I woke up the next morning, the ring was on my finger, and he forced me again and later called it make-up sex, saying he forgave me for the way I treated him. That is the extremely short explanation, but there are so many stories of him forcing me into bed, hitting me or threatening to kill me, and more. So, I started to make a plan. I found a shelter in the city nearby. I started hiding things in the trunk of my car. I was in the service industry then, and so I would take more shifts whenever I could and hide my cash tips in a box of tampons in my purse. And I finally was ready and left my phone. I had a new cheap one, and never went back. Tammy knew him and lived near us, but she didn't know about my plan. She messaged me on social media and I told her what happened. All of what happened. So she played dumb when he came around asking where I was, spinning the story that I was suicidal and he is calling the police to find me. He never found me. That was years ago. I am now 36, and Tammy is too. Trent is 38. Tammy became a bit religious, but I told her as long as she is happy and safe, I don't care what she leans on in faith. She started to invite me out to her church 4 years ago and I kept saying no until I very firmly said if she brought it up again, I would just walk out or hang up. I'm not against anyone believing what they want, I just don't want or need to be sucked into it. I honestly do not mean any offense to anyone of any faith. I myself am just agnostic, and if that ever will change, I will decide on my own, but I doubt it will. She got a job 2 years ago overseas. I acted excited for her but I was also deeply devastated. Without her, I had no one else. By this time, I wasn't in contact much with family, and I do have surface level friends, but no one that's known me in the real sense. I worked it out with my counselor and just carried on. We stayed in touch online and video chatted a lot. She would show me London and I would show her my transition to moving to Texas. We would chronicle our explorations of our new cities, and then one day it started to slow down on her end right around the time she went to visit a friend in our old college town. She then asked if she flew to Texas sometime this summer, could she stay with me a few days, and I excitedly agreed. So early this month, just a few weeks ago, she came here. She was off the whole first day, but I figured she was tired. Then the next day, we went out and got drunk. She started to cry and I got us an Uber back to my place and asked her what was wrong. That's when she asked me not to hate her and told me everything. She's with Trent. She's been with him almost a year. I was too stunned to even say anything, and she went on and on about how it's not what I think and he has changed. She told me he found Jesus and turned his life around and deeply regrets the way he treated me. The more she talked, the more I just shut off. I didn't even have it in me to feel anger. I just stared at her frozen as she talked until she said please just say something, so I did. I told her to get the fuck out. She started to explain it all again. She hated him forever but they kept running into each other. He goes to church and showed he has changed blah blah blah. I didn't interrupt her, but when she stopped talking again, I just repeated myself. She argued more, and I would just listen and repeat until she grabbed her stuff and left. It was silent between us for a week until my dad texted me that Tammy called my parents crying and told me to get over myself. After all, it's not like I wanted to get back with him, right? And that's what I get for living with a man I wasn't married to. Then she texted the next week rehashing her argument and pretty much demanding I video chat with him to see for myself that he's changed and forgive him. She then blamed me that they can't take the next steps in their relationship because I don't have a forgiving heart and that I was malicious when I kicked her out. I've spent all of this week trying to figure out if I'm insane to think this is a huge betrayal. A deal breaker. I mean, who even dates their friend's ex, for one, but this? I blocked her after she hinted that my version of things was exaggerated and malicious, but I don't have other friends to turn to about this. I don't think I am, but and her family thinks I am at least for kicking her out in a strange city alone when she was just being honest with me. Update 1. It took Trent 2 weeks. I had a full-time job but also a part-time service industry job as a bartender. He showed up at the bar. It's a small bar and one of the regulars, Daisy F30S, is one of the folk I did confide in about Trent and Tammy. When Trent walked in, I happened to be chatting with Daisy and she saw my reaction. She asked what was wrong and I told her that it was Trent. She wasted no time and went to get my manager. Trent sat at the end of the bar and I took my time checking in on my other bar guests until my manager Heather F50S came out with the other 2 bartenders, both M30S. Trent had already begun knocking on the bar asking for service loudly and I had been ignoring him. He got kicked out quickly and told that we can and do refuse service to him. I got texts from a new number saying it was Tammy and begging for me to answer. She called 4 times and I didn't answer. She left voicemails with Trent and one without all telling me that I was concerning them with my hatefulness, how I'm alone in the world and that's not safe, who would I turn to if someone broke into my home at night. Things of that nature and religious crap sprinkled in. I was still on the clock and Daisy suggested I stay at her parents'. I know her mom who sometimes comes with her to the bar. At that point I was shaken enough to take them up on it. Daisy's mom, Rose F60S, has been sweet enough to let me stay rent-free for as long as I needed, but I eventually moved in with one of the servers at the bar. She helped me look for legal representation and I filed for a restraining order using screenshots I had emailed myself prior, old voicemails, and though we could not prove harassment on Tammy's end, Trent had said enough in the voicemails and messages he had sent that it qualified for a temporary restraining order. I am safe for now and the hearing is in January. No one knows where I live currently and I've shut down all social media. I've been NC with my family as they've been pushing me to give my address so they can send Christmas gifts, but when I gave them a P.O. box Daisy is allowing me to use, they got angry it wasn't an address and that was suspicious enough for me not to trust them. It's strange but I am slowly making friendships. And seeing a counselor helps with the stress. Trent is pretty much blacklisted from the square of bars where my bar is, word gets around. I've not walked alone a single shift since. And that's my update. Not perfect, but I remembered my password when I was checking my email for any additional stuff to send to my lawyer and wanted to let every person concerned about me that I am okay.